This is the portrait of a very important bride. We might call her Mary Jones. But whatever her name, wherever she lives, she is the wife and mother of America. Her job is to make a home, the American home. Today, it is perhaps the most important job in the world. How many years will she have before the job gets her down? Will it take her youth, her good looks, her health? Will it spoil her disposition and finally wear her out? Well, thanks to American industry and America's sales force, her chances are a lot better than those of her grandmother. As a bride, grandmother had routine chores that Mary Jones will never have to bother with. And for the basic household routines that go on from generation to generation, Mary Jones has better and easier ways of doing nearly all of them. But there is one chore that in far too many homes has not changed much. The last stand of real drudgery in the life of the American woman. Grandmother's iron and ironing board are still with us. It is now streamlined and heated by electricity, but it is essentially the same chunk of iron and not much easier to handle. The job still gets Mary's back, arms, and legs, just as it did grandmother's. If Mary Jones loses her looks, her health, her disposition, the breakdown is most likely to begin over the ironing board. But it need not happen. As soon as someone shows Mary the Ironrite story, her days of drudgery will be over. In other appliances, there are dozens of makes. It is sometimes hard to decide best. They are called to Mary's attention at every turn. In choosing any, hardly go wrong. But Ironrite is unique. There are really only two ironers on the market, Ironrite and all others. Only Ironrite does away with the hand iron. Only Ironrite annihilates ironing drudgery. In Ironrite, the points of superiority are so instantly apparent that there is no comparison. Where other ironer rolls are supported at only one end and have only one usable open end, the Ironrite roll is supported at both ends and has both ends open. Using a roll supported at one end only is like rolling dough with only one hand. There is undue stress on the bearings, unequal pressure along the roll, and heat is so unevenly balanced that two thermostats are usually required. Besides, the user must try to do all ironing at one end, with certain operations on many garments a virtual impossibility. When Mary Jones is introduced to Ironrite, she finds an entirely different story. Ironrite's exclusive, patented roll is supported at both ends. Pressure and heat are evenly distributed, and there is no bearing wear. Ironrites made 28 years ago are still giving perfect service. Heat rises. In other ironers, where the shoe is in back of the roll, the heat goes up and only part of it reaches the garment. The rest is wasted. With the Ironrite shoe, the heat travels up through the cloth with 100% efficiency. Then, following the counterclockwise motion of the roll, the heat and steam continue on up the back, far from the user's face. With other ironers, Mary would have to feed the garment to be ironed in over the top of the roll, with greatly reduced chances of being able to control the ironing operation. Ironrite's exclusive tilt-up forming board lets Mary see what's going to happen ahead of time. On the forming board, she can smooth out the wrinkles and arrange and guide the garment with ease. Perhaps the last doubt Mary might have would be something like this. How can that big roll possibly get into tiny gathers and ruffles? After all, my hand iron is pointed. Well, Ironrite has 2 points, one on each end of the shoe, and they get into any ruffle or gather as neatly and far quicker than any hand iron. And Mary won't have to swing a chunk of hot metal. Instead of lifting and guiding the point into the material, she simply guides the material into the point. Every Ironrite feature has been engineered to perfection. The operation has even been simplified to easy knee action. Her hands are always free. A touch of the right knee control brings the roll down and starts it turning against the shoe. Another touch raises the roll and stops it. Holding the left knee control stops the roll in the down position and allows for the drying of heavy seams, double thicknesses, and material that may have been over-dampened. Once Mary Jones has seen Ironrite breeze through every conceivable type of garment in the laundry basket, she will begin to see it as more than just an appliance. In a larger sense, she will see it as a magic key to greater freedom and happiness, better health, a creator of precious added time for living. Of course, after Mary receives her new Ironrite, she will need free home instruction by a factory-trained instructor, and she will have to use her Ironrite a few times before she really becomes proficient. It's like riding a bicycle or driving a car. There's really nothing to it. Ironrite salesmen demonstrate this fact to prospects by sitting down themselves and ironing shirts. Ironrite instructors go a step farther and iron shirts while blindfolded. Well, Mary Jones has had her Ironrite for several weeks, and she now finds herself doing the ironing to relax when she's tired from other chores. What a difference between this and the old-fashioned way. Instead of standing over an ironing board with the prospect of having to lift and swing a hot iron several hundred times, Mary Jones is comfortably seated with nothing to do but guide a few ounces of cloth and operate 2 simple knee controls. And she can even be dressed to go out. With Ironrite, there's nothing to spoil a fresh manicure, nothing to impair the most carefully arranged coiffure. She simply sets the thermostat according to the material to be ironed and turns on the heat switch. Ironrite's single thermostat is the last word in scientific heat regulation, accurately adjustable to exactly the degree of heat required for each type of fabric. Now the shoe has reached the proper temperature, so Mary turns on the motor and she's ready to go. A man's shirt spells plain work for the hand ironer. On the Ironrite, it is no harder to do than a napkin. There are only 5 steps to a man's shirt when ironed on the Ironrite. The sleeve is made with the fullness gathered into the cuff. To straighten and smooth the body of the sleeve, she can lay it on top of the roll. She drops the cuff under the roll out of the way and feeds the sleeve in at an angle, pulling the gathers out over the point. If fullness at the cuff is in pleats, these are held in place and ironed down flat. She continues right up to the shoulder seam. Then she turns the sleeve over and irons the other side on the opposite end of the Ironrite. For the cuffs, she feeds one in on the right side of the forming board with the wrong side of the material next to the shoe and irons up to the body of the sleeve. When the cuff is under the roll, she stops the roll for a moment to press the cuff thoroughly. For the right side of the cuff, she turns it over on the opposite end of the forming board and shoe. In ironing the back of the shirt, Ironrite does the job of 6 hand irons at once. She starts with the tail, with the wrong side of the material down on the forming board. She irons to the armholes, and it only takes a jiffy. Then she raises the roll, shifts the shirt slightly to make sure that the armholes are open and the points of the shoe fitted into the sleeves. This applies to shirts size 15 or larger. With smaller shirts, a slightly different system is used. She continues ironing up onto the yoke, just like that. Here she uses the left knee control to stop the roll for the pressing action, to thoroughly dry the yoke. She removes the shirt from the ironer at this point by taking hold of the sleeves and lifting it up toward her. She irons the collar by feeding it in flat with the wrong side of the material down. Then she turns it over and repeats the operation. Now for the front. There's nothing to it. She grasps one front by the tip of the collar and the bottom of the opening, right side down, and irons across the front to the armhole seam. She then raises the roll, moves the shirt down to the third button, and irons across to the side seam. When finishing the fronts, she uses the left knee control to press the button and buttonhole strips down the front. All double thicknesses of material and all heavy seams can be pressed to dry them thoroughly. Now, there remains only one other operation, and the shirt is ready for occupancy by the head man in Mary's life. And he'll tell you that a shirt that's ironed right is one of life's greatest sources of satisfaction. Now, Mary Jones takes stock of this operation. She has taken about 4 minutes to iron the shirt, as against 12 minutes the hand iron way. When Mary visualizes all the shirts that must be ironed during the year, to say nothing of all the other clothes, those 10-minute time savings add up to extra hours and days for living. Some other garments that Mary Jones wondered about before she saw her first Ironrite demonstration were little girls' dresses, especially when embellished with puffed sleeves and ruffles. Very cute, except on the ironing board. Mary has learned that since these little dresses vary considerably, each garment requires individual study as to the best procedure to follow. In this case, Mary first irons the shoulder seam folded. If the neckline is large enough, the shoulder seam may be ironed singly by placing the shoulder over the forming board. Puffed sleeves are folded double with the crease in the middle and around the sleeve. Place over point of the shoe and iron up into the gathers. The cuff is ironed on an open end last. One sleeve is ironed on one end of the shoe, the other on the opposite end. The right sleeve is ironed the same way, switching over to the left open end of the roll. This special Ironrite advantage is brought to Mary's attention on every garment in the clothes basket. There are many types of sleeves in little dresses like this, but there is an Ironrite way to do them all more quickly and more easily. If the collar is circular, it can be fed into the ironer at the end of the roll over the point on the shoe. It is ironed in this manner, a section at a time, until completed. If the collar is straight, it is fed in flat and parallel with the forming board. The pressing operation is employed to dry it. Dresses made with a yoke and a full gathered skirt are done by ironing the yoke before the skirt. The divided part of the yoke or waist can be ironed by placing the halves over the ends of the shoe and ironing up to the collar. The closed part of the yoke may be folded in sections and ironed down from the collar to the waistline. It looks simple, and it is simple. The skirt Mary places on the forming board then irons around it by keeping the skirt on an angle. She irons into the gathers with the shoe points, raising the roll from time to time to arrange the material. When she irons skirts that are pleated all the way around, she arranges them on the roll and pins them in place. One half of the pleats are done in one operation. The other half of the pleated skirt is done in the same way on the other open end of the Ironrite roll.